A blockbuster deal is on the table in the Locked On NBA mock draft. Do you pull the trigger? Next on Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's going to be a fun one. How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz. It is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. We are also available on YouTube. Jump into the chat room today because we've got a lot to talk about. We'll late game watch. There's some interesting things that happen in Indiana and New York. I can't talk about Oklahoma City winning. It just boils my blood. Some interesting notes about the lack of free agency. I dug into VJ Edgecombe again, and I see it. We'll talk about that. But we're starting with a massive trade in the NBA mock draft of Locked On. So Locked On does a mock draft. All of us represent our teams. We're the only network in the country that has somebody representing every single team and can do this mock draft. We do it in the NFL as well. I think it'll publish on the 16th of June. So it's a little bit out before it will go out. But let's talk about where we are. So we're all starting the picks. Cooper Flagg goes 1. No surprise. Dylan Harper goes 2 despite trade talk. I go out to Philadelphia and I try to trade the 21st pick and the 5th pick to get to the 3rd pick to get either Ace Bailey, Tre Johnson, or VJ Edgecombe. I wasn't sure, but probably Ace Bailey. Trying to see if I can get to the 3rd pick. 21st pick is just another player. We have a lot of young players. I was willing to give it up. I got completely denied on that. Then things started to percolate. Then Orlando reached out. Phyllis Rossman Reich is the host of Locked On Magic, interested in Colin Sexton. He started with Cole Anthony and the 25th pick for Colin Sexton, which frankly I probably would have done. I countered with what about the 16th pick? Colin Sexton for Cole Anthony in the 16th pick. Sexton at 1 year left at $19 million. Cole Anthony with 2 years because it's a club option at 13. Similar players, frankly. Cole Anthony a little younger. Probably has some pluses and some minuses to Colin. And that's where we sat. I was sat waiting, thinking that I might be able to acquire the 16th pick. And honestly, at that point, I was willing to give up the 21st pick. I was going to be willing to give up the 21st pick in Colin Sexton to get to 16 and Cole Anthony. My thought on that is that in the long term of the franchise, I'm not sure Cole Anthony matters, and I'm not sure really Colin Sexton matters. And so just the 16th pick is better than the 21st pick, and was going to be willing to do that deal to get to 16 in the 21st pick. Still probably could do that deal if this next deal doesn't come across. So that's still a possibility. And then it came across, then the email, because that's how we do things, was returned. And the title of the email is, "What is our Zion Williamson deal?" The response was, "I want the 5th pick if we're going to get this." And I answered with, "Fine, I'll take the 5th pick and send you the 5th pick. You set and John Collins and Colin Sexton for the 7th pick and Zion Williamson." That got denied. Moving up 2 spots for that in our mock draft doesn't do me good. Plus, it adds $6 million. I've got to cut money from the cap. I was like, all right, what happens if we can find a way to get rid of the cap hit and I throw in the 21st pick of the draft? So right now, the deal I have on the table is the Jazz would send the 5th pick to the New Orleans Pelicans and the 21st pick. And at that point, Colin Sexton and probably Jordan Clarkson for Zion Williamson. I'm trying to get the 7th pick out of this as well, that clearly is going to ruin the deal. So he basically says, if I'm trading Zion, we're going full rebuild, I have to have 2 top 10 picks. So I'm not going to be able to get the 7th pick of the draft in exchange for Zion. So the conversation shifts. He says, I could do Zion and the Pacers' first-round pick next year for 5, whatever salary it works, prefer if we don't take on extra money. Now, we're getting close. So let's start with the first premise. Would you trade for Zion Williamson and give up the 5th pick? Because all the other stuff around the outside is really just kind of touch and stuff. But would you give up the 5th pick of this draft? And the way the draft is playing out in the mock draft, it's probably going to be either Tre Johnson or VJ Edgecombe. Ace Bailey going 3 to Philly for Zion Williamson. Here's my thought. The reason you go 17 and 65 is for a chance to get a talent that can be a top 10 player in the NBA. That's what this game is about in the league. You're trying to find players that can be top 10, at worst top 15 players in the NBA. That's what carries you to win. Jalen Brunson's emerged into it. Tyrese Halliburton's emerged into it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander clearly is it. Anthony Edwards is clearly that. I really like Tre Johnson. I can see it in VJ Edgecombe. We'll talk about that later. I don't think either of them are top 15 players in the NBA. Maybe. Doubt it. Zion Williamson is a top 5, top 8 talent in the NBA. And if I have to give up the 5th pick to get Zion Williamson, I'm willing to do it. It's elite talent business. And if I can get Zion, yeah, I got it. I understand. But the only reason why Zion Williamson is available is all of those problems. The weight, played 30 games last year, played 70 games the year before that, by the way, played 29, didn't play, played 61, played 24. I got the risk. But if you go look at the top 100 players in the NBA, you're not getting any other one of those players of that talent level for the 5th pick of the draft. You might have been able to go to Atlanta and go get Trae Young for the 5th pick of the draft. That's not this talent level. So I'm in here. Now let me see if I can maneuver this deal and make it good enough. The conversation continues. New Orleans has an interesting pick here. Next year, New Orleans has a pick that is Milwaukee's, and then Atlanta has the right to New Orleans pick in the DeJounte Murray trade. So the better of the 2 picks, Milwaukee or Atlanta, goes to New Orleans, and the other goes to Atlanta. So I went after that pick. So we would give up the 5th pick of this year's draft. We would get the possibility of Milwaukee, we don't know what they're doing, or Atlanta's pick next year. And we don't really know what either. Those teams could end up in somewhat of a rebuild, even though the East is now wide open. And I decide that Jordan Hawkins, the former 14th pick of the draft, who has been a real problem had a struggle in his opening 2 years, shot just 33% from 3, has had flashes, but hasn't really put it together, is worth getting a peek at for a year. So the deal on the table right now is Zion Williamson. Jordan Hawkins, we'd have to make a decision on a year. He shot 37% this year, 33% from 3, a bad year, may not have it. But was a good shooter at Connecticut, has some defensive possibilities at 6'5". Just another young player. He's 23 years old. You're taking a shot. You're kind of second drafting on this guy. So Zion Williamson, Jordan Hawkins, and the first Milwaukee Bucks 2026 first-round pick is kind of what that the way I would call it. In exchange for the 5th pick of the draft, Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson. John Collins is not really tradable, truthfully, until he opts in. Secondarily, New Orleans wanted to save some money, and they wanted both contracts off the books. Would you do this deal? Zion Williamson's contract has got 3 years left on it. So this is either a good thing or a bad thing in your mind. You have the risk of Zion Williamson for 3 years, which I think is a good thing because it's an elite talent and you got a chance to try to pull it together. Zion's getting paid, and it's not terrible, 39 next year, 42 and 44. If you're New Orleans, you do this deal because you get off those 3 years. Jordan Hawkins is only $5 million next year, but he's $7 million the year after. He's restricted free agent after that, and you probably decide you're moving on. And then you've got CJ McCollum as a free agent and DeJounte Murray, and they're going into full rebuild if you're New Orleans. And if you're the Utah Jazz, where would this leave you? What's the right upside? What's the downside? Would you do this deal if you were me in the Locked On NBA mock draft? Or does it put you in a weird spot where you're just too good but not good enough? Next on Locked On Jazz. The Tuesday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by my friends over at Murdoch Hyundai. I've been dealing with Jacob all weekend long over at Murdoch Hyundai down in Linden because my dad's buying an Ioniq 6. He's been amazing, searching for the right color, searching for the right make, searching for all the right things just so that my dad can get exactly what he wants because my dad deserves that. And Jacob's been amazing. And that is the VIP service that we're offering for you over at Murdoch Hyundai. Whether it's in Logan or Linden or at 4646 South State Street, let me set you up at Murdoch Hyundai so that you can get the VIP treatment you deserve by being a Locked On everydayer. The Murdochs have been in Utah for over 80 years. Hyundai, for me, it's the best car on the market for the price. Absolutely amazing in every way, shape, or form with the safety features, the value, all the things you can get for it, the look. That's why Hyundai is rolling. That's why the Murdochs have been here for you for Utah, and this is why we're giving you the VIP experience. So email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com so that I can get you the VIP treatment over at Murdoch Hyundai and give you what you deserve by being a Locked On everyday. Today's show is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO gives you the full visibility and control over your finances. You ever wonder, why are we not running a surplus? That was the question. So it's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. So when you use Monarch Money, you'll realize, ooh, a little too much here. Oh, we have more room here. It doesn't always have to be negative. It can be positive too. It's all in one convenience of juggling. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track and share personal accounts, set goals, stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA, half off your first year. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. It's a fun one today. So on the board is Zion Williamson, Jordan Hawkins, and Milwaukee's first-round pick. To me, this is a no-brainer because of the Milwaukee first-round pick. In exchange for the 5th pick of the draft, at this point while we're discussing, it's either VJ Edgecombe or Tre Johnson, or it's Jeremiah Fears if you like him, along with Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson. And we'll probably have to throw in a second-round pick. Would you do the deal? Here's my thoughts. I would do the deal because the talent's elite. 2, the whole thing you're doing is trying to acquire talent. 2, you're relevant again. With Zion Williamson and Lauri Markkanen, you're relevant again. We're not there, though. The starting lineup at this point would probably be either Keontae George or Isaiah Collier with Jordan Hawkins. Those are your three guards. That's awfully young. With Lowry, Zion, and Walker Kessler. You have Hendricks and Filipowski. I don't really know what you're doing with John Collins at this point. Unless you're going to just start Zion at your point guard. Because that's really what Zion is he's your point guard. So the fact is, I don't actually know how Collier fits because he doesn't shoot well enough. I actually think you might start Keontae George, Jordan Hawkins, two not very good shooters, hoping that they can figure out how to shoot. Lowry, Markin, Zion Williamson, Walker Kessler. You can't afford to have three non-shooters on the floor. And Walker's got to figure out where he's playing. Understanding, I just think Zion's super special. One of the worst defensive players in the NBA, but super special. And you're relevant. Now, the downside is the injury bug. But frankly, if the downside comes and the injury bug is there, and let's assume in this that the next move would be some John Collins move because there's just not room for another roster. And Zion gets hurt again or doesn't play again or is out of shape. Then it says Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, and Jordan Hawkins is your guard, Lowry Markkinen, Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler, and Kyle Filipowski, and whatever other pieces around it. And you're going to lose 65 games again. Probably. Without Colin, without Jordan, without John at that point, you're probably losing 65 games again. And so the risk is that somehow it all starts really well, and you start the year 20-20, and then Zion gets hurt. And then the question becomes, at least in the immediate future, can you get back underneath the 8th pick and preserve your first-round pick? And then go into the next year, at least on this deal, you'd have the Milwaukee-Atlanta best of and your own. We'd be back to having 2 first-round draft picks next year, the one year we don't have 2 first-round draft picks. But it's an interesting question when you're where we're coming from on the bottom of the pack. As you make a deal to go forward, you probably can't make a singular deal that gets you far enough forward that you're not just stuck in the middle, right? If we start a year with a lineup of Collier, Keontae George, Lowry Markkinen, Zion Williamson, and Walker Kessler, we're not better than Oklahoma City. We're not better than Minnesota. We're not better than Denver. We're not better than Dallas. Not sure because of Kyrie, but probably not better than Dallas. Not better than the Lakers. Not better than the Clippers. Might not be better than the Warriors. Probably not better than the Warriors. So you're at best, you're 8th. What are you doing? But you have, in my opinion, a piece that if you can figure out, and let an offensive mastermind like Will Hardy have a piece like Zion Williamson, you might be there. You're also probably one other move away from getting to be really good. You've accelerated the rebuild. You're almost on a dual path. The other one on the Zion deal is the contract's just not that bad. Now, I don't know that Zion Williamson and Lowry Markkinen as your 2 best players goes and wins you a title. And I don't know that Zion Williamson and Lowry Markkinen as your 2 best players gets you to be the top 4 in your conference. But possible. You could build some real depth around this. You might be terrible defensively, but you might score at an alarmingly high rate. So, certainly an interesting exercise. And it really just comes down to, do you have the gumption and the guts to play the Zion Williamson game? And to me, you've got New Orleans who's clearly willing to get off of it and is done with it and had enough of it. I'd be willing to play it. I'll take a 2-time All-Star. I'll take a number 1 pick. I'll take a top 10 talent. I'll take a guy who probably could have played more than 30 games this year, by the way. Remember, they shut him down. On the 19th of March was his last game. He scored 29 points. He had 5 rebounds. He had 8 assists. He was pretty dominant. And then they shut him down. They weren't great when he played this year. They were 10-20. Would you do the deal? All right. I watched VJ Edgecombe, and I watched 2 of his games this weekend trying to really get a vibe on him. And this was really interesting. So I was watching the first and the second. I went to watch the Connecticut game. He didn't play. And I watched the Arizona game because I also wanted to watch Carter Bryant. And I watched the game at Baylor. And I honestly like to watch road games more than I like to watch home games. But I was watching the game, the first game at Arizona he plays, and he ends up going to the free throw line 14 times in that game. No, this is the game at home. This is the game I'm talking about. So this is the early game. This is the late game, the February 17th game. The early game at Arizona, he doesn't go to the line a single time in that game. They lose at 81-80. It's at Arizona. It's in January. It's just, and I'm watching this second game, and I'm beginning to get, honestly, a little concerned. He's really quiet. Like, the game is going on, and he's out there, but he's just a player. And then all of a sudden, with about 6-7 minutes left of the game, the kid kind of goes nuts and shows every skill that would make you believe he's a top 4 or top 5 pick or a top 3 pick. And I saw it. I got it. He was so passive for much of this game. But then late in the game, he started driving. He started blowing by guys. He ended up with 24 points. He went to the free throw line 14 times. His shooting is still a little suspect. In that game, he's 1 of 6 from 3. I'm a little worried. I'm a little more worried about his shooting the more I watch him. If you go to his final 11 games of his college career, like, the ball only went in like one night of those 11 games. He has one hot night against Cincinnati where he goes 5 for 8. But otherwise, his three-point shooting's 0 for 5, 1 for 6, 0 for 3, 0 for 3, 3 for 7, 1 for 5, 0 for 3, 2 for 6, and their loss to Duke, he's 1 for 5. So there's still some areas where, to me, this could go awry. But there's a burst and a first step that's electric and different. And I'll give you another reason why I like VJ Edgecombe and buy into it when we come back on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Wayfair. This is an area where my wife and I have been looking often. We are making some changes, furnishing some things, and Wayfair has been just amazing for us. The days are getting longer. The weather's warming up. Is it outside furniture? Do you just want to spruce up the house, the backyard, the balcony, whatever it might be? Wayfair has something for you because they have everything you need to make it feel more like you. Their massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. Comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables to outdoor decor that you've got. Make it rock outside. Make your place the place everyone wants to be. A new patio dining set with string of lights from Wayfair to help you extend the outdoor space. The mix of styles they offer Wayfair makes it super easy to find pieces. The delivery is free and hassle in even the big stuff. Whether you're entertaining guests or relaxing solo, shop Wayfair to help you in one. Can I give you a trick? If you're like me, you don't really get this stuff. My wife does, so I don't have to worry about it too much. But the other day, I took a picture of an open space, measured it, described it, gave it to ChatGPT. It put the furniture out there for me, and then I went to Wayfair to go look to see if they had it. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Go to outsidewithwayfair.com. Right now, that's Wayfair, Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home, Wayfair. A little more on VJ Edgecombe. The athleticism and the way his body moves is incredible. It's so smooth. And he can do, if he wants to, whatever is going to be asked of him as an NBA player, both offensively and particularly defensively. So if you're watching the NBA playoffs, the pickup points are much earlier than they've ever been before, right? Like this is a whole part of the NBA. It's kind of how Minnesota got burned on Shea early in the series, I think. But you're watching Indiana, New York, people are picking up. The pickup points are now behind half court. That's not okay. Edgecombe has the athleticism to do that. He can move like that. Like this kid, Miles McBride for New York is just an elite, wonderful athlete who moves perfectly. That's the kind of stuff that he can do. Tre Johnson probably can do it too, but VJ Edgecombe moves on a different level. The burst he has, there's zero chance in NBA space someone can stay in front of him. He does seem to go to 2 feet every time he jumps, which is, I think he'll figure out. Tre Johnson's the same thing. They'll both figure it out. He is such a reluctant shooter, though. That is the one thing that really got me, still has me a little nervous, and we've seen it in our numbers, but the numbers are not terrible, right? So we have our numbers that we look on him. The only part of him that's just not there at all is the off-the-bounce three-point shooting. But if Edgecombe gets the off-the-bounce three-point shooting into his game, then he becomes a truly elite player. Right now, that's the one area of concern. He shot 21% percentile, 31% effective field goal percentage, 13 of 52 on off-the-bounce threes. He just doesn't have that game. Ace Bailey took 151. Jeremiah Fears took 133. Tre Johnson took 194 off-the-bounce shots. Jakovicius took 151. Like, that's a different level. Only taking 52 by VJ Edgecombe. Like, Con Knipple only took 58. So, concern to me on Con Knipple is that he doesn't have an off-the-bounce game right now. And your question is whether he'll develop it with his catch and shoot in the 92nd percentile and his spot up in the 98th. Edgecombe, spot up is fine. He's in the 66th percentile. Ace Bailey's in the 57th. Jeremiah Fears is the 50th. Tre Johnson the 57th. They're all the same. Virtually. Catch and shoot. Ace Bailey's in the 80th. Edgecombe's in the 65th. Jeremiah Fears in the 64th. And Tre Johnson's better. He's in the 84th. But there's a lot of shots, those are all fine. The other one that has me a little nervous on Edgecombe is I don't think the shooting motion is totally natural. And when he's wide open, he was a much better shooter because it seemed like he really got time. When that shooting window shrinks in the NBA, I do think there's a chance he could have a hard time. I'm probably still Tre Johnson ahead of VJ Edgecombe, but reluctantly. I just think Tre Johnson's more ready. I think he can score 20 like immediately. Edgecombe moves better, physically better, burst is quicker. But in this game, if you can't, the risk is that he just never shoots it well enough. The risk on Tre Johnson, I'm not sure. I don't have it. I don't have the risk on Tre Johnson. So that's why, I mean, his handle could be a little better. The stuff, it could be, he could get to the basket more, but I'm not sure I see that criticism. The risk on Con Knipple is real. Like, just the game gets too fast, too quick. He's not long. He's got a pump fake game that goes away around the basket, and he just becomes purely catch and shoot. The risk on Derek Queen, who we talked about, is real. Like, I just didn't see him move at NBA speeds. The risk on VJ Edgecombe is just that shot never comes around. And then if he really, is just an open catch and shoot guy, then he could be fine. But that's a little less than what you probably want. So I'm probably still Tre Johnson over VJ Edgecombe. I'm probably the only one. I can be wrong on these things. I've been wrong on many. We have the history of my mock drafts. If you'd like, we'll go through all my mistakes on one. One interesting note. Kevin Pelton did his top 25 free agents this year. I know Tony Jones has been talking about the Jazz need to go get a point guard. There's just not free agents out there this year. Tre Jones or Tyus Jones, who was in Phoenix last year, will probably be available. Maybe. He's probably a pretty good point guard for a not very good team, frankly. It's turned out that he's probably not a very good point guard for a good team. Is what we learned last year in Phoenix. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is probably the best available guard that's going to be moved in free agency this year, unless Quentin Grimes moves, but I don't think Quentin Grimes is going to move. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker might be better than Quentin Grimes. So it's not a list that makes you say, wow, of excitement. We'll dig into it a little bit more. But it means if you're trying to improve the team, you have to do something like our Blockbuster. Finally, here's what I thought was interesting about Indiana, New York. Late game 2, Indiana's Rick Carlisle was the first one to bring false action to the NBA. Rick Carlisle and then Quinn followed. Carlisle would run plays where they ran multiple interactions and then they got into their set. And he was doing that to New York in game 2 so that by the time they were 10 or 12, 14 seconds into a set, each New York player had to switch 3 or 4 times, and absolutely they blew switches right and left. I was going to play the video for you, but we're out of time. I mean, New York just kept missing switches. Mitchell Robinson would miscommunicate with someone, and somebody would slide to the basket. They got 4 late game layups on just blown switches. In the game 3 late, Indiana got into their stuff later, and they never got into their false action, so that New York's defenders only had to defend 1 switch or 2 switches instead of 3, 4, and 5 switches. And it meant that Indiana got completely stymied. So as you watch tonight's game, see whether or not Indiana can get into their stuff early enough to make it so that you're getting into multiple actions and getting into multiple switches, and whether New York makes mistakes. All right, I'm excited to look at the chat room. I'm excited to look and see what you guys think of whether you would have pulled off the deal. We'll talk about it tomorrow as well on Locked On Jazz. Plus, we'll continue to look at players. I looked at Carter Bryant a little bit. We're going to really focus in on the 21st pick here for a little while and see who some of these other players are. I think we've delved pretty deeply into anyone that would be available at 5. I have not done a lot on Malowich. Maybe we'll talk about him a little bit tomorrow on Locked On Jazz. Thanks very much for tuning in. We now send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel. It's Locked On NBA. If you're not following the big board, it's Locked On NBA Big Board with Rafael Barlow, our NBA draft expert.